Am I the asshole for not letting someone switch seats mid-flight? My wife, 36 female, and I, 34 male, were flying back from Dublin to Washington, D.C. We were assigned the middle and window seats in a row. The aisle passenger no-showed, so we ended up having the entire row to ourselves. Huge win. Before leaving the gate, I moved to the aisle seat and my wife stayed at the window. Nothing eventful happened for the first 4.5 hours of the flight. FAs were amazing and even gave us extra drinks for the guy in the middle. Randomly, the passenger from the aisle seat across from me comes over with her friend who was sitting a few rows back and announces that her friend would now be taking the middle seat to get away from a crying baby further back. She did not ask, she told us this was happening. There were about 3 hours of flight time remaining. I asked the woman whether the flight attendants are on board with this. She said yes, but since these deals are usually brokered by the FA, I called over a FA. The FA said the agreement was that they could take an available aisle seat but could not disrupt anyone's seating arrangements. The woman then starts bitching about how I was assigned the middle but then moved to the aisle before takeoff, so I shouldn't even have that aisle seat. I had been sitting there for almost 5 hours and we had already distributed our items all over the row. The woman and her friend disappeared to talk to another FA for about 5 minutes. The woman across the aisle then comes back to her seat and proceeds to yell at me saying that her friend would not be sitting there not because she was not allowed to, but because I was so incredibly rude, and that I was a fucking asshole. I kept my eyes on the show I was watching. The only thing I did this entire time was ask to talk to the flight attendant. I did not say anything else to this woman, though I would have liked to. Am I the asshole for not volunteering the middle seat mid-flight? Not the asshole checking with the FA was appropriate. I'm going with the unpopular opinion here. You paid for 2 seats, not 3. You didn't ask the FA because you wanted to verify the rules. You asked because you didn't want to lose your space and were hoping the FA would not permit her to move. You were assigned a middle seat. So per the FA, the woman could have sat in the aisle seat, once you moved into your actual assigned middle seat. She's somewhat an asshole as well for her attitude and rude behavior. Esh. And in a twist of events, the crying baby she needed to get away from was her own. But seriously, I get that a crying baby can be disturbing, even more so, if it's not your own. My own daughter got seriously on my nerves on more than a few occasions and I love that child more than anything. But that is no excuse to being rude. If she had asked nicely, maybe you could have considered moving back to your original seat, even though you would not be obliged to do so. But with that attitude? No way. So not the asshole. Esh. They should have asked politely, but you paid for 2 seats and had the benefit of 3 for most of the flight, and you were not actually entitled to hog all 3 seats while somebody else suffered. It would have been fair to decide which of the 3 seats you would let her have, but refusing her a seat because her friend was rude was an asshole move. And the flight attendant shouldn't have let you do that. Wanted to get away from a crybaby just to become a crybaby. Wait. To clarify, your wife and you were taking the aisle and window seat and someone wanted to sit in the middle? You weren't asked to move, they just wanted that middle seat? And you refused to let them? In that case you were the asshole. You paid for 1 seat, you 1 seat. If you were asked to move back to the middle so the person can get the aisle, then you're not the asshole. But you said that the new passenger wanted to sit in the middle seat, which is presumably unoccupied. Am I the asshole for telling my kids, Mom said no? I have 2 kids, who are 2 and 4 years old. And one thing I try to reinforce with them is that if Mom or Dad says, no, if they go to the other parent, the answer they will get is no. Which means if they ask my wife, and she says no, regardless of how I feel on the matter, I'm going to back her up. And I expect my wife to do the same. Well, this morning we were getting ready to leave and 4-year-old asked my wife if she could get out a game that always makes a mess. So my wife said no. Immediately 4 turned to me and asked the same question. So I said, no, your mom told you no. Which upset my wife, and I don't quite understand why. Am I the asshole? I think, your mom already answered you, is much better. You are the asshole. Whilst I understand what you are trying to do. You should be saying, the answer is no. Not, your mom said no. The former shows a united front and shows that you are both on the same page. The latter tells the kids their mom is the bad guy, and it is only her fault you said no.
It's about the way you are phrasing it to be her fault, whether that is intentional or not. Soft, you are the asshole because I get what you were trying to do, which was teach your child that if they get a no from one parent, they shouldn't ask the other parent. But the way you phrased it has an undertone of, Mom is a killjoy, and I might have said yes. No, assholes, here the problem is not with what you are doing, but how you are phrasing it.
Your phrasing can be taken to mean, I might have said yes, but your mother said no, thereby making her the bad guy.
Your kids are too young to understand the kind of united front setup that you want to emphasize. Therefore you need to stick just with something that is more like, no, or, no, you were already told no. Soft YTA.
It's because you made your wife out to be the bad guy by saying Mom said no. You could have just said no. AITA. That probably made her think you'd have said yes to it. If she didn't already shoot it down.
You are the asshole, because you made her the bad guy. You should have said, your mother and me say no, because you're making it sound like you'd let her play that game if it was down to you.
Basically being a Disney dad. Am I the asshole for refusing to give my ex extra money for her other children?
My ex-wife and I have a 9-year-old son together.
We broke up when he was 1 after I found out she was cheating on me.
Right after I left her, she told me she was pregnant and attempted to pass the baby off as mine, but I knew based on how far along she was that it couldn't be mine.
We hadn't been together like that for months at that point.
But she kept trying until she was 5 months when she conceded that I wasn't buying it. Her baby was stillborn at 7 months and what was already a bitter enough divorce. I was mad she cheated. She was mad that I refused to buy that her kid was mine and didn't want to make our marriage work. When she lost the baby, she did everything she could to make me pay for the cremation.
She even attempted to sue me for the money when I didn't give her anything, but it was thrown out.
During the divorce, we had a DNA test done on our son and he was mine.
And we split custody.
My ex has been in a few relationships since and has 3 additional children.
She remarried a few months ago and she's currently pregnant with baby number 5, but she's struggling and so is her marriage. She wrote a very long email about all this and asked me to give her extra money for 2 of her kids who have birthdays coming up and she has nothing for them because money is so tight.
She also told me to take our son shopping for gifts for them on top of giving her money directly for gifts.
I thought she was going crazy at first, but she was serious. I told her that would not be happening.
That my duty is to my son and not to her additional children.
She told me my duty is to make sure his family is taken care of. I told her I take care of my kid. I pay child support despite having our son equally to her, 50-50, because it's acknowledged I earn more. But I won't be paying for her to have more kids with other people. She called me heartless. Told me I can easily afford it and then some. She said I was just as heartless as when I made sure her stillborn child didn't have a nice funeral. Am I the asshole? If I were you, I would document the interactions and use her financial situation as a reason you should have full custody. Since she is having issue proving for all of her kids without your assistance, you can gladly take your son full-time and she can have visitation. I would also ask to see where your child support payments are being used. That they are only used to care for your child and not the others. She tried to pawn off 1 kid as yours, now she's doing it again with 2 more when she has a husband. Also, are you sure your child is properly treated at his mother's? Do his siblings treat him differently because he has more? Not the asshole. Not the asshole, but do tell her that you are willing to take your son full-time, so that's 1 less person she has to afford, take care of. Not the asshole, and take that email to your attorney to file for full custody. She can't take care of all her kids. Short answer, not the asshole. It's unfortunate for your ex's other children because they are kids, but you are under no obligation to take care of or provide for them. Actions, hers, have consequences and she needs to be responsible for them. A 9-year-old does not need to purchase gifts for a sibling. If he wants to, he can make a gift or a card. This is just another way for your ex to have others take care of her responsibilities. Yikes, pack your bags, cause you're going on a guilt trip. Not the asshole. Continue to ensure your son's well-being. Not the asshole. She made her choices in life and now doesn't like where that ended up. You absolutely do not have to fork over any money for her other kids. Am I the asshole for not accommodating someone because she never spoke up? I, 28 female,
Recently went out with a few friends and some of their friends.
Eventually we were discussing where to get food. I suggested a few places like pizza, Chinese, sushi, Korean, etc. People gave opinions, like they weren't feeling XYZ or they have certain allergies. This one girl, Abby, never spoke up even when I specifically asked her. I didn't know her well but wanted to include her, but she would just mumble and not give a definitive answer.
Eventually we settled on Korean food.
There were few people in the group who weren't too familiar with the food, so I explained the menu. Everyone seemed to enjoy the food and I thought that was that. Towards the end of the meal, Abby started whining about the food.
She didn't like this, she didn't like that. She was unfamiliar with the food. She couldn't even choose the restaurant.
Few people reminded her that I specifically asked her where she wanted to eat and it was a group consensus.
Just for the record, I'm an introvert but can be very opinionated and can speak up for myself. I asked Abby why she didn't speak up earlier and she responded she didn't want to upset anyone.
My tone turned harsher and said, "Well, you could have said something earlier instead of whining and causing a scene now.
Why bring it up at the end of it if you didn't want to cause trouble?" Abby's face turned red as she got up, paid, and left.
Am I the asshole for embarrassing her? Not the asshole. She didn't say anything when directly asked. She can suck it up now. There was no reason for her to whine about the food after the fact. Plus, trying foods you are unfamiliar with is a good thing. You never know if you like something unless you try it. But even if you don't like a new food, you should be an adult about it and not whine. Not the asshole. She responded she didn't want to upset anyone.
Well, you could have said something earlier instead of whining and causing a scene now.
This.
Carrot, 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 carrot.
She was unfamiliar with the food.
So the fuck what? Get familiar by trying it. Not the asshole, and I don't agree with people saying the subject had already been addressed.
The biggest question of all, the
why question, hadn't been discussed, and you had a valid point. If she didn't want to cause trouble, fine, but then don't cause trouble.
Korean food is so diverse and caters to most dietary restrictions. It's probably one of the best things for groups. You're also in your late 20s. If you can't speak up by now, well, good luck in life, Abby. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. She would have pissed me off too. I hope her friends don't hold it against you. She deserved it. You nailed it. She gave no input despite explicitly being asked and then started whining while everyone was enjoying their meal. She got what she deserved. Not the asshole.